friends. This is the midweek episode of Democracy Ish, of Waj and Danielle's midweek check in that you all have been waiting for because it is all about Andor, the
Yay,
show
we made
that
Danielle see it.
Yes, the show that Waj successfully and all of you successfully bullied me into watching. But before we jump in, because Waj, you're going to lead that conversation, do tell the people what breaking news we have.
All right, we have two pieces of breaking news. I have to discuss it with Danielle, and this is the heavens parting and giving me a gift. Right now, Donald Trump is meeting the president of South Africa, Ramaphosa. I might be mispronouncing the name. And Donald Trump, our racist president, is completely rewriting South African history, apartheid. Educating the people about apartheid, about what apartheid was, but doing it incorrectly. And furthermore, the president of South Africa openly says to his face, "Oh, if I only had a jet to give you," which Donald Trump said, "Yeah, that would have been nice," without shame. And speaking about that jet, he was asked about the Qatari jet. He got really pissed off, tried to kick out that person. But the United States, according to the Pentagon, is officially accepting the Qatari bribe. Bribe. So Donald Trump and the President of the United States and the Pentagon have accepted the bribe. So now Donald Trump is fully owned by Muslims in the Middle East. I love it. Here is a $400 million completely compromised luxury jet that he will use as Air Force One and then donate to his presidential library, Danielle, because, Donald is a reader. And while this is happening, note that they welcomed South African refugees who are not refugees and promoted the white genocide conspiracy, which is a bullshit lie, white supremacist conspiracy that he just repeated, by the way, in front of the South African president, who's like, no, this is bullshit. And they are kicking out and deporting people to now we know Sudan. They want to deport them to Libya. There's people in El Salvador, and they removed the protected status of El Salvadorans. They're going to remove the protected status of Cubans. So I had to get that all out. Danielle, your take.
My take is one, let me pause for shock that Donald Trump was going to accept a $400 million luxury plane that, by the way, the Qatari government and the royal family has been trying to get rid of since 2020. Shocker that no one had any takes on it because it is fuel inefficient, it is gaudy, and it costs way more money than it's actually worth. So, who would be a better person to stick that with than the regressive president of the United States who believes that all that glitters actually is gold, but it's not. It's just sparkling shit. The fact of the matter is that Donald Trump has been owned by Russia since, oh, I don't know, the beginning of the 2000s. Now he's owned by Qatar, and and they're rolling the dice. If Elon Musk was able to buy him for $290 million, now he looks at Elon and he says, "What else you got for me? What else can you do for me?" And that's Donald Trump's mode of operandum. It is, can you do me a favor though, on steroids, as all MAGA people now are on steroids, in their in their quest for world domination. So uh good luck. You know where all your tax dollars are going to. It's to rehab this Qatari jet and make it Air Force One, which can't actually happen, by the way. So Donald Trump got a plane. It's only three and a
It's
half
it,
months into his presidency. And what do I say? What's the difference, Wash, between a hooker and a hoe? Nothing but the fee. Nothing but the fee.
and as Danielle said, and it made me laugh out loud, which I rarely do. She used the term that I love from the '80s: two-bit hookers, not just a hooker, a two-bit hooker. And I really recommend people watching this exchange between the South African president and Trump. It's funny, but in the worst ways, because he's literally promoting white supremacist conspiracies and telling the black South African president bullshit. And the president is literally calling out the bullshit and educating him about apartheid. And Donald is repeating Elon Musk and white supremacist conspiracy theories about white farmers being killed. All nonsense, right? And it's so shameful. And whenever Danielle and I, for the past 2 years on Democracy Ish, have talked about fascism and white supremacy. We said, "Oh, you're being so hysterical. Calm down. You have trans derangement syndrome." Folks, I give you today. I give you today. It's a racist, fascist, white supremacist regime that is being completely unchecked, promoting neo-Nazi conspiracy theories and humiliating a black South African president. Well, he's not humiliated. Actually, the president is humiliating Donald Trump very calmly, lucidly. He's just calling out Trump on all his bullshit. And Donald Trump has openly accepted a bribe. So here we are. And speak of money being wasted, billions of dollars apparently are going to be wasted on the Golden Dome, which is the wall on steroids. Taking a cue from Israel, which is committing a genocide. Israel is the size of New Jersey, so they want the Iron Dome for America. America is much bigger than New Jersey, so it's going to be billions of dollars. It ain't going to be finished, right? And then
It's
they're sending money.
never gonna be finished.
Never
It's
ever,
never gonna be
never
finished.
ever.
Ever, ever.
And so it's a shithole country. This is what happens. White supremacy is self-destructive. People are not coming to this country anymore. Tourism is down, and it shows you fascism in real time. He wants to investigate and prosecute Beyonce,
Bruce
Oprah, and
Springsteen
Bruce Springsteen
and
based on a
Bono.
and Bono based on a bullshit conspiracy, which I won't repeat. Also, the conspiracy about Joe Biden because they want to distract from their failed presidency and his failing health. This is what happens in fascism, right? But eventually, what happens in fascism, it gets too big. It cracks, it leaks, and you're seeing the cracks and leaks. And there's a show that I wanted Danielle to see for 2 years, and Danielle gave me
Shut
the
up. It wasn't
classic
2 years.
black brown immigrant mom face when they don't want to do something but they're forced to. She's like, even with the and I'm like, you have to see Andor. I think you'll dig it. And so this is the first time I'm talking to Danielle. Danielle has seen the first season of Andor. There will be spoilers. There will be spoilers, folks. Danielle, what did you think?
So I am very excited because one, I will say why this is what I've learned, and then I'm going to tell you what I thought. What I've learned is there's a reason why I never really loved Star Wars versus Star Trek, for instance. And Star Trek for me was about expedition and exploration and the discovery of new worlds, and it felt more like the future that I wanted to live inside of. Star Wars was just taking all of the shit that we did on Earth and just putting it out into the galaxies and making it just even bigger and worse with technology. And that is actually where we are. So that's why I realized that I've always been like, Star Wars, because it's apocalyptic in a way that I didn't want, like, I don't want to think about space and the future in that way. So that was really the pushback. What do I think about Andor season one? Andor season one is an exceptional piece of story writing, storytelling. It took me 3 episodes, and I was cursing at you. 3 episodes to actually get into the season, to actually get into the story and get into the characters. And like episode one, I was like, oh God, I have to do 11 more of these. Episode two, I was like, oh, for fuck's sake, Waj, really? And then by episode three, I was like, huh, maybe he's onto something. And then I finished episode 12 of season one, yeah, this morning actually, and I was in tears.
Mm.
So we now know that like you've hooked me in to this show, to this story of resistance, this beautiful story of resistance. So you ask me all the questions, and I'm ready to unpack them. I have a lot of feelings.
Okay, so I was like you when I first saw it 2 years ago. It took me 3 episodes, and I was like, "Where is this going?" And then it hooked me. And then I saw that the creator, Tony Gilroy, is an Academy Award-winning screenwriter. And this is why, Danielle, I think he was the right person for this because he was like you. He's not a fanboy. He doesn't care about Star Wars. He was asked to write this movie called Rogue One. Andor is a show right before Rogue One, and Rogue One is right before Star Wars: A New Hope, right? So Tony Gilroy said, "I don't care about Star Wars. I don't care about the mythology. I'm not a fanboy. I just have to figure out in Rogue One why all these average characters will voluntarily sacrifice themselves." And that's when he said he found the arc. Like he goes, oh, that cracked it for me. What would take this person who's selfish to become selfless? And then the success of Rogue One, he's like, oh, let me, in this moment of time with Trumpism and authoritarianism, and now Tony Gilroy, as of this week after season two, Danielle, he's openly using the word fascism. Disney, he kind of let it out of the bag that Disney kind of kept him muzzled, but he did a 92Y interview and he openly said fascism. And now, if you hear Tony Gilroy and even George Lucas, they're openly talking about war, imperialism, authoritarianism, fascism, right? So it's clear, folks, that that's what he's talking about. So he's like, oh, what would cause Andor, the character played by Diego Luna, who is a scavenger, who's selfish, who has no superpowers. He's not like Luke Skywalker, no lightsabers, there's no force, he can't fly. What would make this guy who's just trying to survive, working two jobs just to stay broke, right? Living under a fascist regime, the empire, right? What would make him be the hero willing to sacrifice himself? So, for those who haven't seen it, that's what Andor 1 and Andor 2 really does. It shows you the journey, not just of him, but all these other characters who kind of in real time become radicalized to join the resistance in different ways and the toll resistance takes on them. And then in season two, which we'll talk about next week or in 2 weeks, we're going to talk about how, and Tony Gilroy, the creator, talked about this, how fascism not just affects the marginalized, but also the people who help build it. It
Yep.
eventually comes for everyone. And I won't spoil it because Danielle hasn't seen it, but fascism eventually comes for everybody. And Andor season two and the Trump administration now is showing you because MAGA's eating each other as we're speaking over the Jeffrey Epstein tapes. They're calling Kash Patel and Dan Bongino part of the deep state. I love it. Never go full conspiracy theorist, right? So what I feel like is, when you were watching it, did you see parallels to what we're witnessing right now during the Trump administration? Because I think, they can't contractually say it. I think it was on the nose.
So here's what I will say, particularly around the earlier episodes of exposing Andor's greed and kind of selfishness, is that initially that's what fascism and oppression has you believe, that you have no choice but to save your own skin, right? That like the problem is too big for me to take on. They're always going to exist, so I just have to get mine. I have to protect what is mine. So whether that's me and my mom, right? Andor and his mother, what is it, Marva?
Marva.
Marva, whether it's their little unit or like the friends that he kind of has, but you can see in the beginning they're friendships that he's cultivated, but that he's also taken advantage of, right? Like he's taken advantage of people's kindness. And again, that becomes full circle at the end of season one, where he is now risking himself for to save other people. But it is the beginning episodes to me are, it's where we are right now, where people are just trying to keep their noses above water. They're just trying to like preserve their life and their well-being, and like fuck the collective, right? Like
Yep.
it is the ultimate in the America, pull yourself up from your bootstraps. We do this all alone. John Wayne type of mythology that America was built on, that has been about the destruction of community in service of the self. And I think that the writing around Andor and this kind of scavenging mentality that is so steeled to like anything that is possibly like good, that's the calcification, that if you're not constantly aware, right, and woke to what all of the other strategies that fascism uses to keep control, like if you're not aware of that, that's what you become.
No, I think that on point. I think, and that's the arc that it starts from, is that Andor is literally a scavenger. He's a talented scavenger. He scavenges to survive and he's selfish as F. And you can't blame him, right? Because he's like, who's got my back? Nobody. I'm under the boot of the empire. Everything sucks. Marva is a little bit more selfless, but he's like, I'm a young man. I'm sick and tired of running. I'm going to get mine. So for the first half of the series, he's like many Americans right now. I'm not El Salvador. They won't come after me. I'm not a pro-Palestinian activist. They won't come after me. I'm not poor. I got my tax cuts. Meh, I have my Tesla. I live in suburban communities. I go golfing with Chet. It won't affect me. So I got to get mine. I got to take care of myself, right? And if you're marginalized, you see the divide and conquer with our communities. Black people are like, all right, I'm going to stick with black folks. Latinos stick with Latinos. Gays stick with gays. You got yours. I got mine. Peace out. It's all going to hell, right? And I think the show, the arc, and you talked about the writing. I want to talk to you about this just to give it some structure. There are four monologues in Andor season one, which I think represent fantastic writing and fantastic layers of resistance literature. The writing on the show is fantastic. And at different points of the 12 episodes, these four monologues, these infamous monologues, show up. One of them is when Andor, right, is recruited by Luthen. Now, for those who don't know, spoiler, Luthen is a guy who you talk about sacrifice. He's like the architect of the rebellion, but he's like a deep mole, and he presents himself as to be like an art collector and dealer, but on the DL, he's like the hardened, wizened criminal, right? So not criminal, excuse me, the mastermind. So Luthen sees potential in this Andor guy, who's a great scavenger, and he says, "All right, I'm going to recruit you to do a mission." So Andor's like, "Oh, if I do this mission, I'll get paid, and with the money, I can retire to Miami and live out my life. And F
Basically,
y'all,
yes.
peace out." Peace out, everyone. I'm going to go to Miami. But during this mission, he befriends some folks. And he also shows you that one of the greatest casualties of war and fascism is the youth. But the youth also has idealism. And there's this young kid called Nemec, who's the youngest of the crew.
I loved
And
him.
yeah, and Andor lives, but Nemec, he's working on this manifesto. And Nemec dies. And Nemec's death has an impact on Andor, who's still selfish right now. And Nemec leaves behind this manifesto. I won't spoil it. The manifesto comes back full circle in season two. So here's this 20-year-old kid, or like 21, 22, super young, casualty of fascism and empire, still isn't hardened, but still sees some hope. And he leaves behind this manifesto. And I want to quote the end, well, one of the ends, and I wanted your take on this. He says,
Hmm.
"And remember this, the imperial need for control is so desperate
Hmm.
because it is so unnatural.
Unnatural.
Tyranny requires constant effort. It breaks, it leaks. Authority is brittle. Oppression is the mask of fear." And I thought of Donald Trump. Danielle.
I like that. I actually have to go back because that I think was episode, because again, this is very fresh for me. So that was, I think, episode 11, right before the finale of season 1. And I was listening to it and I was like, "Oh my God. He is absolutely right." And I want to even go to when Andor is imprisoned,
Oh, yeah.
right? And he's in prison and they execute in the prison, they execute 100 men
But
because
Danielle, can you tell people who haven't watched how he gets to prison? Because I think it's
okay.
important.
This becomes part of the breaking point from him, from being selfish to like moving into a place of selflessness. So here is now Andor. He successfully goes through this mission. He has befriended, and what I find really interesting about the mission that Luthen puts him on is that they're suspicious of him, right? They've been working on this plan for months, and here comes this guy 5 days until they're about to, do this extraordinary heist against the Empire. And they're all there. The people are there because they truly believe in the resistance. Andor confesses to them that he's only there because he's being paid, right? And so he's just like, does that change anything? You need my help, and I'm willing to help, but I'm not here for the same reasons that you all are here. I'm here because I need the money. What money begets power, power begets a level of freedom, and that's what I'm trying to attain. So that's why I'm here. But as he's listening and seeing these people, and it's just like, what? Like they're not motivated by money? They're not motivated by getting out, because what they have already discovered is that there is no getting out of
There you go.
fascism. That's the thing. So now Andor, he takes the money to successful in the way that some of them escape, some of them die, as Waj stated. He takes this money and he goes to their version of Miami, right? He's in short sleeves. There's, whatever planet that they're on that is like
He's
the
chilling.
tropical planet. He's chilling, right? And he's headed to the store and he's picked up on the fucking street. Not because they know who he is, but
Hmm.
because they're picking up people on the street. They're arresting them for looking suspicious. The guy says to him, "You look like you're sweating." He goes, "It's hot outside." And they're like, "We don't give a fuck." And
Running, Daniel,
right,
literally, he got snatched up for running while brown.
yes. So they then he gets picked up at a time when the empire has decided that they are doing a zero tolerance policy, where now all of the initial terms of arrest are now expanded. So what would have normally got him 6 months, and again, he's done nothing. They don't know who he is at this
No,
time.
but Daniel, even the irony is he's a wanted man for the heist. He doesn't get picked up for the
He
heist.
doesn't get
He
picked
gets
up. He gets picked up for being brown. He gets picked up for being brown. And so the funny thing is that the Empire is looking for him. They have him. They don't even know it. So he gets sent to this prison. And the reason why I'm bringing up this prison is because one,
yeah.
it was very hard for me to watch it and not feel like this is CCOT. This is exactly this exists, right? Like this prison where they don't even have any locks on the doors or anything like that, because they just willingly torture the inmates because they're inmates and they can. So they just torture them into compliance, and that their only function is to be there to build machinery that the empire actually needs. But they have these countdown clocks in their cells, and they think that eventually they're going to be let out. But what they learn, right, is that no one is ever getting out. That even when they do these pageants around release, that people are being released from one cell block into another cell block as like new inmates. And when they realize that there is actually no hope to be had in good behavior, in doing anything quote unquote right, then the plan is activated for the great escape. And what I think is beautiful in that is that it shows you, one, the cell block leader who was an inmate but was totally on board with the fucking prison guards because he had was given a little bit of power, a
Here you go.
crumb of power. And this is what fascism does. It gives some people crumbs of power, proximity to power, whether that be your complexion, whether that be your industry. It gives you this proximity that has you believe that you're better, right, than the lowest of the low. Except when he finally registered the fact that he was never leaving, that the 200 and some odd day countdown that he had going on was just a fucking lie. He said, "I would what did Andor say? He said, "I would rather die." What did he say? "I would rather die
Kino,
fighting." Huh?
yeah.
He said,
Kino Loy. You're talking about I would rather die trying.
"I'd rather die trying
Then
than die
I'd
giving
rather
them
die
what they
trying
want."
to take them down. I would rather die trying to take them down than die giving them what they
What they
want.
want. And that line to me, even before Nemec's manifesto, that to me, that speech that was given in the prison by the day
Kino.
guard, what
Kino
was it?
Loy.
Yes,
Kino.
Kino. That monologue to me was epic, because in that, when Andor hears his words through Kino as he's announcing to the Star Wars CCOT that they've taken over, and he hears Kino using his words, you could see the light go off in his eyes, like, "Oh my God, I convinced him, right, that it was worth us dying trying to get out of here than just living to give them what they want." And that to me was like, that to me was the first monologue that was like, holy shit, Andor is changing.
And you know what? You saw this fresh. I saw this two
Yeah.
years ago.
Right, right.
This was during the Biden administration. 238 brown innocent immigrants were not sent without due process to die in a foreign gulag. That in that show, they're literally sent to a prison on water, a gulag, no oversight, no regulation. We talked about this about last week when Christy Nome is proposing a reality TV show where immigrants fight for fast tracking to citizenship. In the show, they are asked to meet quotas, and whoever gets more gets a little bit extra bread, and whoever doesn't gets punished. Folks, last week, Christy Nome, echoing Donald Trump, wants a reality TV show where immigrants fight or do competition to get fast track to citizenship. And literally, they're sending them to die in Sikot in El Salvador. And apparently, they've sent them to South Sudan. We don't know. Folks, this show wrote about it 2 years ago.
Yep.
An innocent person, well, he's not really innocent. That's the irony of it, right? He thinks he can escape. He thinks going to the first arc doesn't
Hmm.
affect me. I'm a scavenger. I'm going to get my own. He gets his own illegally. He retires, right? He's one of the rich ones. He's the 1%. But guess what? He's brown at the wrong place at the wrong time. Everyone starts running. He's like, oh shit, maybe there's a disaster. He starts running. And the robot says, why are you running? He goes, everyone else is running. You're suspicious. Now he gets sent, like all these El Salvadoran men like Kilmar Garcia, to literally disappear and die. And by the way, he has to work. If you work extra, you get rewards. He's being lied to. He's being used, wait for it, as free labor to build the Death Star. Whose stock went up during the Trump administration? Private prisons,
Yep.
free labor, right? And his radicalization happens in prison. In prison, that's what like
Yep.
Andor said, F this. And then Kino, who Daniel's talking about, like he becomes like, oh, I'm the good one. I'm like the capo. Oh, they give me a little extra. And then he realizes his entire worldview, he's been an enforcer of fascism and he's never getting out. And so Kino, he goes on the mic and they, sabotage the sound system and they have like control of the microphone system. And Kino does this uninspiring speech, and then Andor says, "Is that all you
All you
got?"
got? Is that
And
all you
that's when
got?
Leans in and the Andy Circus has this amazing monologue, which I've seen many times, especially in the past 3 months. I wonder why. And then it leads with the chant "One Way Out," and he inspires an entire mass rebellion of all the prisoners. Like we're either gonna die trying to escape or we're going to die fighting. And so all of them then lead this mass mutiny literally out. And they find out that the only way to escape is to jump out into the ocean. And then, you might live or you might die. And the great tragedy, Danielle, there's lots of tragic moments in Andor, is Kino Loy, whose
Can't.
voice
I know.
inspired the rebellion. Tell him what happens at the end.
Oh my God. It broke my fucking heart. So they have rushed up to this floating prison that is, in water, and they realize that they have to jump. And so they have one way out, one way out. They're climbing, climbing, climbing. They get to the precipice, and Kino uh looks out, and and Andor's like, what are you doing? Like, let's go, like, jump. And he says, I can't swim. And I, like, in that moment, I was just like, I like audibly gasped. And then I was just like, what fucking difference does it make? You're going to die anyway. At least die jumping to your freedom. Like, that was the place that I had gotten to.
That
Like,
was me too.
what? Like, that was the place I had gotten to. I was like, it doesn't fucking. And what I love too about that moment is that Andor looks to another character that had been in his cell block, and he says, right before they jump, whatever happens, we made it.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Right.
And that wasn't, because the whole idea of the making it is what I am taking, is the trying. The whole idea of the making it in that moment, but in the larger scheme of fascism and oppression, is the trying to fight back against it. And that brings us to Nemec's monologue, like the monologue of his manifesto, when he talks about the leaking and the unnatural nature of empire, of oppression, is that the thing that will stop it, and it may not stop it for you, but eventually it will stop it, is try.
That's right. Don't be complicit. Don't voluntarily bend the knee. Don't give them what they want. Don't settle lawsuits. Don't give them $1 billion of pro bono legal work. Don't fire or force to quit the head of CBS News or the head of 60 Minutes. Don't give them, oh, I don't know, 50 votes like you did, Democrats, for Marco Rubio. Don't go along with them with the Lake and Riley Act and help them go after innocent undocumented immigrants who were simply charged with nonviolent offenses. Resist, resist, do everything in your power to resist, at least use your voice. And to quote Kino Loy, I would rather die trying to take them down than die giving them what they want. And you see the twist because Andor is like many Americans. He starts off, I'm going to get mine. I'm going to get my tax cuts. My kid will be fine. My kid's homeschooled. My kid has vaccines. I don't care. I have a Tesla. I have two Teslas. It won't impact me. I'm okay. And like Andor, he got his bag. He was in Florida. He was wearing the shorts. Everything was good until it wasn't. Fascism comes for everyone, folks, including the people who helped build it, the architects of fascism. I can't ruin it, season two. But you talked about those two speeches, and now we're in the midway show where Andor has left. He is now on his pathway towards radicalization. Now, Andor represents a type of resistance from the grassroots, where a downtrodden person whose low income gets radicalized based upon the oppression. But everyone has a role to play, and which is what I like about the show. I want to ask you about Luthen in his speech. Luthen, you'll find out in season two, I won't ruin it for you, is this wealthy man posing. He gives arts and sells art to the 1%, including people of the empire. And he's flamboyant, but in real life, he's the mastermind behind it all. And he has moles everywhere, and he sets and plans this motion for like 20 years. And one mole that he has who works in the empire, he says like, man, you keep asking me to do this dangerous missions, and they're gonna find me out. What have you sacrificed? And then he turns to them and gives one of the best speeches I've heard in a TV show in a long time. And he goes, I'm gonna quote him. Stellan Skarsgård get a fantastic performance as Luthen goes, "What's my sacrifice? I condemn to use the tools of my enemy to defeat them. I burn my decency for someone else's future. I burn my life to make a sunrise that I know I'll never see. And the ego that started this fight will never have a mirror or an audience or the light of gratitude. So what do I sacrifice? Everything."
I mean, so first, somebody just said in the chat, no spoilers, folks. This entire episode of this show that Watch and I are doing is one big spoiler. If you have not
Of
seen
season one. Of
of
season one.
season one, if you have not seen Andor season one, don't watch. Watch later after you watch the episode. But like that's the point that we're doing here. That scene, his monologue, Luthen as a figure, um, is brilliant. And it's brilliant for the fact that, again, resistance, in order to fight back against empire, in order to fight back against fascism, it has to come from every corner of society. It has to come from those that have been under the boot. So I think about this. And so, folks, just buckle up because some of you going to be pissed, and some of you are going to be like, oh, that's right. Black people in this country have been under the boot of fascism and authoritarianism. Black Panthers had their own newspaper where in the 60s they were talking about the fascistic state of America.
Mm,
Because for Black people, what now the majority is experiencing has been the experience. And so
sure.
there have been fits and starts throughout the centuries of Black oppression in this country, of revolt and resistance, and trying, right, to tell our stories. You have so many griots, so many speakers, so many academics and thought leaders and politicians who have tried to tell the story of the Black experience to say that it doesn't stop with us, right?
Mm,
That our collective, right, freedom is intertwined. That's why Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, who just on Monday was the 100th birthday of Malcolm X, and I implore people
mm,
to look back at his interviews, to read his writings, to understand what Malcolm X was saying and
Yep.
why the American empire turned him into a terrorist, right? And why they turned the Black Panthers into terrorists to be discounted for the truth that they were offering about this aggressive and oppressive state for Black people. So now,
And Malcolm never ever advocated violence, and he never ever committed violence.
no, what he said was, you have a right to bear arms as a citizen of this country. And so do so, right? And that attempt to have Black people self-actualize as full and complete citizens of this country made him a threat, right? So why do I say that?
And
Because
also, can we just say, Daniel, the Mulford Act? Remember the Mulford Act when Black people actually used their Second Amendment to bear arms, and the governor of California at the time, Ronald Reagan, and the NRA were said, gun control.
right. Now all of a sudden we need gun control. So I want people to understand that Black people have been at the grassroots speaking for generations, speaking for centuries about oppression, marching, protesting, speaking out, risking life and limb, literally putting bodies on the line for centuries. So many have been lynched, killed, detained, still in political prison in this country for speaking the truth to power. So I've been talking about fascism. That's the grassroots. As things in America have exceedingly gotten worse, and it isn't just Donald Trump, the worst nature of America has been building for decades as it's been affecting more people. Then you have the Luthen set, the middle class and the wealth set starting to recognize that they're never going to amass enough wealth for protection, that eventually, right, this machine is going to come for them as well. So then you have, right, those that get into bigger positions of power, those that access the millions and the billions. And so Luthen, to me, his character is so important because he could very well just sit back, drink champagne, enjoy the spoils of his caste, of his, of his wealth, of his whiteness, of his caste and his position, providing trinkets to those in power, right? He's a different type of scavenger. He's a scavenger for the wealthy. He's an archaeologist. He's
Mm.
he's an attaché, right? Like, so it's, to me, it shows you that he had already understood that this is getting out of control, right? And that eventually it will come for me. And so you're seeing that tick off in other races, in other ethnicities, in other places of power inside of the United States, where people are again becoming conscious and woke to the fact that there is no protecting yourself from the insidious nature of fascism. And so I'm excited about season 2 because I can see already where it's going and the fear that is coming out from season 1 of the wealthy set, that they're just like, wait, now the empire is making rules about what we do with our money. It's our money. How are they telling us what we can do with our money? And I'm just like, because that's how that shit works.
Eat the tariffs, Walmart. Eat the
Eat the
tariffs.
tariffs.
And you know what? Another character, and I think it's important, the Luthens are important because it shows you a person with privilege, how much they can do compared to those who don't have power and don't have access, right? Luthen uses his privilege and uses the tools of his enemy, as he says, to destroy them. And he realizes he has condemned himself, but nonetheless, this is what he must do. He has to use the money, the wealth, the connections, right? He has to turn on people for the sake of the greater good. And he will never, ever have an audience. He will never, ever get likes on Substack or Instagram or Facebook. No one will know his sacrifice. He's not going to
Because
die.
he
He's
works
not
in the
going to die here.
shadows.
And I won't even tell you, well, we're going to talk about season 2, right? He knows. And then there's another person, and I wish she was my senator, and I have a crush on the actress who plays her because she's just a dope character in the Star Wars legacy. Senator Mon Mothma. Senator Mon Mothma is a senator, upper class, 1%, respected, intelligent, has like kind of wealthy one percenter husband, family, part and parcel of the empire, but secretly working for the rebels and using her position as an elected official, as a senator of the republic, to slowly but surely mainstream some dissent. It comes to a head in season two. I won't spoil it for anyone and for Danielle. When Mon Mothma, your take on this character, because I look at Mon Mothma and I'm like, can you imagine, Danielle, if we had five Mon Mothmas in America right now? Just give me
Yep.
five.
You know, I think that her character is brilliant. One, her husband is an absolute fucking idiot.
Yeah.
But also just like a slime ball. But you also understand like anyway how their relationship came to be through their what is it their marriage pact or what they do and what she ends up doing. Oof, at the end of at the end of season one. But her character is brilliant. One, I don't know who the actress is, so you have to tell me because her presentation is just fantastic, but she is somebody that has been cultivated inside of wealth, inside of these systems that she knows in and out. She has a type of knowledge and a type of know how that is something that isn't taught. It is something that you are literally born into and groomed into. But she recognizes the insidious, oh, Genevieve
Genevieve
O'Reilly, thank you.
O'Reilly, who played
So,
the same character 20 years ago in Revenge of the Sith. Continue.
oh, wow. So she knows that the power that the empire has needs to be stopped, that they are moving at a speed and at a pace. They're like the nothing in the never ending story, like they just keep gobbling up more and more and more, and she knows eventually it is going to come for everyone, and she's sick to death of the people and the parties around her. How are they sipping champagne? How are they eating this food as like devastation and havoc is being wreaked? And you listen to the cocktail party chatter. I love the back and forth between the prison and them at the party, and then the prisoners and them at the party, like talking like that back and forth film cut that they were doing, and the story writing was so good because they're talking about these people at this cocktail party as if like, well, just don't revolt. Well, follow, what do they say? Follow the
Listen to the
laws.
cops. Listen to
Just
the
listen
cops.
to the
Don't
cops.
resist.
Like, if you didn't run, if you put your hands on the steering wheel, if you just weren't black, if you just didn't talk back, if you just blah 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 blah, then you wouldn't be a criminal, right? Like, these people are criminals and they're dangerous. And she looks at this woman who's talking about the danger and the fear, and she goes, anything currently happening to you? Like, you're in danger? It is anything, has anything happened actually in your, no, no, but they're talking about, so they're talking about these things, but nothing has actually happened, right? So her character is like, she's so disenchanted
Yeah.
with the fuckery and the empire, to the place where she is now putting her life, her wealth, her appointment and her privilege at risk in order to be funding, right, the resistance. And my mind-blowing moment was when her cousin walked in, and I was like, that's your cousin. I had no like, it was
She
just,
betrays her family. She betrays her family for the sake of the people. She ends up becoming the leader of the resistance. No spoiler alerts in Rogue One, and also in the new trilogy. But I can't see. The thing is, Danielle hasn't seen season two.
I know.
And speaking about gobbling, 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 Mon Mothma has a monologue about the appetite, the voracious appetite of fascism. So Daniel's on the nose there, but I can't ruin it for
Okay,
you.
don't spoil it for me. Don't spoil it for me.
Yeah, yeah, and so, but you see how everyone has a role. That's what I like. It's an inside game and an outside game, as one of our
Yes.
commentators said, right? People of privilege, people on the grassroots, people with wealth, people who are workers. Everyone has a role. Artists and writers, scavengers, and strategic people, right? It takes every single lever at your disposal to dismantle fascism, right? You have to break it leak by leak, leak by leak. There's also Saw Gerreras. We'll talk about them in season two. The rebel extremists, the people who are made into extremists, right? The faction that does the dirty work, the dirty fighting that no one else does. How does that person become that type of radicalized individual, right? The insurgents. So all of throughout history, not it keeps it's the same reboot, folks. It keeps happening again and again and
Hmm.
again. Tony Gilroy, the showrunner, said that like this is nothing new. You can talk about Trump administration, but this has always happened, right? Fascistic tendencies, the voracious appetite of the few who want power and who want greed, who want more and more and more, right? But then there's these two characters who have a fascinating arc, which I will not spoil. These are, if you will, the Eichmanns of the empire, right? The if you will, the yes men, the bureaucrats. There's this truly like heinous character called Deidre, and if you see the actress who plays
I
Deidre,
hate her.
yeah,
Oh
yeah,
God.
the actress who plays Deidre is this charming, extremely pretty. Like I saw her interview, I'm like, you are an amazing actress yesterday. And she said something which was really interesting. She goes, you know how people say you have to empathize with the character you're playing? She goes, no, she's a terrible person. Deidre was born in the empire. She's a Nazi from the start, like went to all the schools, complicit, right? She like her face is like this the whole time. She is like in it. Then there's another guy called Cyril. Cyril is like an upstart, henpecked by his mother, trying to get ahead in life.
I hate
And
him too. Oh
yeah,
God.
you do, but just wait, just wait. The thing with Cyril, you'll see in season two, you sit there and think, Cyril, the power of narrative. He gets swept up like a MAGA boy. He gets into the romantic
Yeah,
notion,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
right? He could have easily been a rebel, but this is the society he's living in. These are the people in power. He wants to escape, and he goes, "Oh, I'll be doing something for the empire. These are the rebel scum. Good guy, bad guy. Us versus them." And you see Cyril and Deidre as architects of the fascist empire, cogs in the wheel. Your take on them?
Yeah. So Deidre to me, Deidre has so many layers because she's the only woman in her position, right? So she's the only woman in this, and what she's a sergeant or a general, like she's the only woman in that position. So she already has to overprove herself. So she becomes like even more craven than the men, right? Like, no, we need to keep these people alive and torture, the life out of them.
Christy Nome.
Yeah, we need to keep these people alive. We need to torture them. They need to know like who has the power, blah blah blah. And she's always trying to prove herself, and she proves herself by showing how ruthless and how heartless she is. And it is really like, again, women inside of MAGA, women inside of this of this fascistic movement are they again, it goes back to, right? You always want to talk about massa, but not the mistress of the big house in slavery. You want to talk about who upholds patriarchy and white nationalism. It is white women, right? And Deidre's character to me is that craven white woman who wants the power that the men have, and so in order to have that power, she shows just how heartless she can be.
Yep.
And on top of that, she is also necessary in order to hold up, right, this system. And that is white women in America. That is white women inside of patriarchy. That is Christy Nome. That is, all of
And
these
Bondi.
leaders. Pam Bondi, the Sarah Palin initially, like it is all of these women, right? Look at me, look at my cosplay, look how tough I am. Look at these, I shot a dog in the head. Like, look at me, look at me. So her character is just so gross because it's just such an on the nose representation of how white women uphold fascism to me. Cyril, he is the MAGA boy in the basement of his parents' home who has been listening to Joe Rogan and thinks Peter Thiel is a god, thinks Elon Musk is a god. He is the epitome of an incel that just was not loved enough, was not like shown his own power enough, so he can only devise his power from those that he oppresses, and the
Yep.
ability to, he becomes a cop. right? Like he become like that's that he becomes a cop. He has a badge and he can hide his insecurities and his self-doubt and hatred behind that badge. And then you see him overreach that power, right? Which sends all of this shit into chaos.
And both of them overreach for different ways to mask that insecurity, right? The alpha Karen, which is Deidre, overreaches to try to prove herself that she's more masculine than the men, that she's more zealous than the zealot, and I cannot spoil it for you. And then Cyril overreaches in his own way to be aspirational. He's a true believer, right? He's the incel who actually believes in the Rogans and the Tates, and he wants Deidre, and he thinks he's the hero, and he overreaches in his own way. I will not spoil it for you, but I can't wait for Danielle to see season 2 because uh, just wait how this comes together. See, Danielle, it's very interesting. Danielle has the luxury, I would say, or the privilege of seeing this
For the first time.
during
Oh.
Trump's second, and you're seeing it play out in real time. Whereas we saw this the first season in Biden, and there was no CCOT at that time. People weren't being kidnapped and sent to El Salvador or South Sudan. Like we're seeing this in real time, folks. So Daniel's getting it fresh, and I'm connecting the dots. But I want to end on the fourth speech, which I think is the best, one of the four great speeches of the first season. Marva's final speech. Marva's an elder, and you and me talk
Mm.
about this so often that we think we won't see like the return of America in our lifetime, right? It's bad. That doesn't mean, inshallah, it can't happen or something can be reformed. But I've made peace with the fact at my age that it's for my kids. I'm trying to leave the world better for my kids. Like, I don't think we're gonna have a breakthrough on climate change, and like, we might see fascism weakened, but like the new hope is probably going to happen with my kids. You and me are probably Rogue One, right? Just the way it goes. And Marva is the one who dies of old age. She doesn't get to see the sunrise, but then she leaves a final speech. And in the final speech,
Mm.
the Empire lets her like give this final speech via hologram. She's already dead. So this was like her final testament to her people. She was seen as like the godmother. Everyone loved her. And she's giving the speech, and the Empire's there, and they're tolerating it. And at the end, she does the call to action. And she says, "The Empire is a disease that thrives in darkness. It is never more alive than when we fall asleep.
Asleep.
It is easy for the dead," she's dead now, "it is easy for the dead to tell you to fight. And maybe it's true. Maybe fighting is useless. Perhaps it is too late. But I'll tell you this, if I could do it again, I'd wake up early and be fighting those bastards from the start. Fight the Empire." And then the Empire comes and destroys their hologram, and then the people just like rise. The average Joe rises and takes on the Empire. Your take.
I thought that was gorgeous. One, because it was the funeral procession for her, and I think that in Ferrex's tradition,
The
right,
city,
that
fair.
in their tradition that you do leave behind this message while you are living. She knew that she was dying, right? So she's leaving behind this message, and it's projected. And I just thought that it was gorgeous, right? Like one, um, as Ferrex,
Yeah, Ferrex.
yeah, as a daughter of Ferrex, so she's given this like big ceremony, and the speech she had said, "Look, these people," she's like, "they kept the empire at arm's length. They got a job, they had a home, they're just keeping their heads down and just moving through life. Maybe you get a girlfriend, maybe you get married, you can have a beer with your friends. So like all is well." And she's just like, all has
And
never
then
been well. All has never been well. She's like, and as she's speaking, like you're seeing this collective awakening, because guess what? The empire is now in their city, right? And they're not leaving. They have now pitched a tent. So you can't pretend that they're this far off, faceless presence in your life. No, they are now everywhere. They literally put boots on the ground. They've taken over the hotel. People are disappearing. Bix has disappeared, right? The owner of the shop is hung, right, for doing absolutely nothing. And so she's like, you cannot go back to sleep, right? Like, again, you cannot think that these small comforts, these little crumbs that have been left for you is what it means to live. We're not living. And that's what I took from that is, I've said this before. I've said it on Democracy-ish when we do our show, folks, Monday and Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern on my YouTube channel, that when we do that show, that, you know, what fascism, what MAGA is good at is leaving crumbs and
Yeah.
making people believe that the crumbs are enough. They have us fighting against each other, black against, against white, Jew against Muslim, trans against, this, that, and the other thing, all creating this chaos so that we don't recognize who the real puppet master is, who the real enemy is, which is capitalism, which is patriarchy, which is racism, that are glorious bedfellows. You want to talk about a thruple? That's like the glorious thruple of this world and the chaos that it has caused. And when she says, like, fight, stay awake, right? Like, don't keep lying to yourself that what you're given, the scraps, is enough. It's not enough. Die fighting for something more. And that's the message that I took. It was gorgeous. She's an incredible actress. It was just such I was crying during her monologue because it was just that moment of, my God, project this on every screen across America, around the world. Like, that's it. The crumbs aren't enough. They're not enough, and they should have never been enough.
And it comes back full circle because the Empire is literally on Ferrex with their boots on the necks. And if it's Ferrex today, it'll be another city tomorrow. And Andor, seeing that, and at the end, he finds Luthen, and instead of trying to kill Luthen, he enlists. So you see the journey of Andor, where he goes from a reluctant scavenger who's completely selfish, who becomes radicalized, loses Marva, and says, "Okay, I'm in. I'm all in." And then it leads directly to season 2, which I can't wait for Danielle to see. Either we'll do it next Wednesday or the Wednesday after. Let's see when Danielle finishes.
See
For
if
all
I
of
can
you, yeah,
binge it.
for all of you who are watching, if you want us to do it, let us know. If you enjoyed this, let us know. This is the second time we've done a pop culture analysis. Our breakdown of Sinners is on my YouTube channel, also on Danielle's Substack, my Substack. People really like that. This is our second breakdown of Andor season 1, Andor season 2. Even better than Andor season 1. I won't mess it up. For those who are watching for the first time, please subscribe to Danielle's Substack, The Damn Digest. Please subscribe to The Left Hook. Like fools, we have kept everything without paywalls. We've kept everything super cheap, so $5 a month or like $50. Pay what you can. But we've kept everything without paywall because democracies die in darkness. Remember, someone said that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Daniel's also on YouTube, Daniel Moody YouTube channel, where we co-host Democracy-ish every Monday and Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern time. Please, please, please subscribe to Danielle Moody's YouTube. Again, she's a fool like me. No paywalls, folks. So if you've enjoyed this, let us know. And if you guys have caught, I know a lot of people came in. We got 700 people on this, which is really impressive for an
Yeah.
Andor show. But I know a lot of people came in halfway through. Don't worry, we're going to have it up. I'm in Philadelphia, the city that 250 years ago wrote the Constitution. I have to go in front of a crowd of 700 people in about 2 hours and talk about truth, trust, and the media. That's why I'm dressed up like this. So if Danielle has it up, I'll share it. But either way, we're going to have it
Yeah.
up, the full video on our Substacks. That's Damn Digest, and the lefthook.substack.com. Final words to you, Danielle.
Waj, I love this pop culture rundown. I love the storytelling. So keep this coming. We'll do Andor season 2 next. I am grateful that you bullied me into watching this show. Because it is an eye opener for me. And I think it's a really great way to translate this moment. So I appreciate that. But again, I will echo what Waj says. We are independent creators. We do this because we believe in democracy. We believe in resistance. This is the part that we play in trying to take down the empire, which is connecting the dots, providing information, providing analysis that we think that people need to make better choices in their lives. So please, if you can, become a paid subscriber to the Left Hook, to become a paid subscriber to the Damn Digest. Consider subscribing to my YouTube. Again, I do a live show 5 p.m. Eastern, the Danielle Moody Show, Monday through Thursday. Waj and I do Democracy Ish Monday and Friday. So if you can support with resources, we appreciate that. If you can support with just a subscription and a like, we appreciate that, dear friends. So, Waj, go kill it in front of 700 people. Convince them to wake the fuck up.
I hope so.
Uh, and everyone loves the suit, by the way. They like the suit and the
Ah,
new haircut. They think
this is
you
what
look
happens when I actually try to dress like an adult and wash my face. I'll try to do it more.
well, the people love it. Oh, and lastly, for the person who asked, where do you get the sweatshirt? At DanielleMoody.com. The future is woke, and the back says AF. So you can get that at DanielleMoody.com. See you soon, friends.
See you on
Bye,
Friday. Thank you,
Waj.
Daniel. Bye.
Be safe.